So next up, in the theme of integration of policy and science, we have Fairul Jamal from the Mareset Research Organization in Malaysia.
Thank you. Hi everyone, good morning. So I'm just going to be talking about how in Malaysia we're trying to align research needs and conservation goals with the limitations we have in terms of resources, usually in terms of manpower, funding and expertise. So just to give a bit of background, MPAs were only established in Malaysia back in 1985, and the legislation only allows arbitrary 2 nautical mile boundary from the lowest watermark. So basically that remains the status quo up until today, and there was no ecological basis for the boundary of any MPAs. So up to today we still have less than 1% of our marine areas protected, and species was only really considered as part of the MPA in 1999 when there was a rediscovery of a dugong population in the southern tip of Peninsular Malaysia. So since 1999 we've had records of multiple deaths of dugongs annually, which allowed us to get some funding to do some rapid assessment back in 2010. And what we found out with that 5-day aerial survey was that the dugongs were found, about 60% of the dugong sightings were found outside of the existing MPA boundaries. And that was also where fishing was quite rampant, a lot of trawl fisheries and purse seiners. And the only time species was actually considered for conservation, there was only one species, which was the leatherback turtles, that was being continuously researched since the mid-70s, but no conservation actions actually materialized from the research. So basically, in terms of challenges, we knew that to establish an MPA or to modify existing MPAs will take many, many years and a lot of information that's needed. And typically research will involve high costs and a long duration. And we know that the legislative and the administrative framework is not, it doesn't enable us to establish any MPA quickly. So the issue that arises is that a lot of these threatened species don't really have time to wait for us to gather enough information. So we ask ourselves, do we really need that much information before we actually do something? So what we've started is looking at the dugong data that we had from the 2010 survey, and we found out that we have 3 important information there already. So we know where the dugongs are, and we know what threats they're currently facing, and we also know what other species that's present in the area. So what we did was we immediately went to the stakeholders, we went to the communities, we went to the government, and we started looking into ways that we can put in some stopgap measures, some conservation measures while the legislation can follow through and the MPA process can continue on. So after about a year of continuous engagement, we finally got buy-in from the government, and what they did was they put in some conservation measures immediately. So what they did was they set up the committee and they extended the boundary by a further 1 nautical mile, and they also increased conservation fees to reduce the tourism pressures that the animals were facing. And they also started recruiting volunteer rangers from the communities to get the community buy-in to stop the pressures from fishing and habitat degradation from the coastal development that's happening around the area. So while that's going on, research efforts continue to gather more information so that we can redesign the NPA. And because of the limitations on resources, we utilize like a research tourism concept where we establish facilities to allow scientists from all over the world to come in and conduct research that we need the results of at their own cost. So we managed to get researchers and scientists from places like Japan, Thailand, and the US to come in because we provided a good ecosystem for them to conduct research. And the catch is the results have to be shared with us. So basically, in terms of the Malaysian traditional model, was that we have the legislation and then we wait for research to continue to get enough information, and once we have enough information, then only we think about establishing the MPA. That usually takes about 10 to 15 years to establish one MPA, and that takes a really long time. So what we're doing with this pilot project is to still conduct the research, but while research is going on, stopgap measures are introduced to reduce whatever pressure that's already there in the ecosystem before the MPA can be established. So what we're saying is basically, instead of the traditional model where little data means no action, means little data means a lot more action is needed from the stakeholders. And basically going back to that leatherback turtle case study, research has gone on from the mid-70s, and after 20 years of research, conservation measures came in too late, and we lost our population of leatherback turtles. It was declared locally extinct about 3 or 4 years ago. We don't have any nesting of leatherback turtles anymore, and we used to have thousands of them annually. So this is what we're saying right now. Instead of having an MPA that achieve a conservation goal in terms of percentages, we're looking at areas where it will mean a lot more, it will give a lot more impact, a lot more positive impact. Thank you.